best entertainment on the earth. Tune in for Comics with Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm not going to talk about comics much in this video. Just fair warning, I know this is a comics channel. I probably need to I've asked a few times and everybody always says the same thing. Branch out into other things. Talk about games you play. Talk about, shows you watch. Talk about other things. Well, I'm playing through Horizon right now. I don't particularly like it. Something about the model they use for the protagonist, the woman, it's like the uncanny valley. She doesn't look quite right. I don't know what it is. I'm watching Moon Knight, although I can't say I like it. I thought I'd like it more, but it seems too cutesy around some of this stuff. I don't know. A bunch of people I know, a bunch of my friends are watching Bridgerton. That one also, I can't. I don't really care about Bridgerton. I mean, I don't like any of these 18th century English royalty farting around kind of shows. They're just not for me. I guess is the best way to put it. I watch Parallels on Disney Plus. It's a little, it's a show. I promise I'm about to get off this topic. You're not going to listen to me talk about shows I watch. Parallels is okay. It's all right. I mean, it's not a foreign TV series that they dubbed, talking about alternate realities. It was fine. It was a good intro show to show kids, to kind of explain the idea of alternate realities and time travel. It's fine. Nothing great. I haven't seen a great anything in quite a while, come to think of it. No, but actually, what I wanted to talk about a little bit is just being nicer to each other. So, I've certainly done the bits on here's what's going on Facebook, here's what's going on Twitter, here's some arguments that will happen, and I've talked about how I've been called to the table a few points, or called to the floor, whatever. I've been taken to task. There we go. A few times around when I complain about, say, a creator losing their shit on Twitter versus a fan. Why, I've had people ask me, hey, you say you're supposed to be equal, isn't it equal? Shouldn't the fans, the customers, be polite and disciplined like creators? And the answer is yes, of course. Of course, as decent human beings, they should be. But I think that in many cases, the creators have a greater responsibility. And I say that not to, crap on creators or anything. And I also don't say it from the standpoint of they should be nicer because they need to sell their books. I think that's common sense and they should. But, that's up to them. If somebody wants to tank your title or you want to act like a jackass and run the risk of your company firing you, at some point, I used to be more concerned about this. And now I'm kind of in the zone of you're a grown adult. Presumably you put on your clothes this morning and you wandered out into the world, you drove. Somebody mentioned this to me for a moment. They're like, why do we expect, celebrities and others, why do we demand that they should be professional on, say, Twitter, when, that should be more of a baseline expectation, not something we have to teach them, because a lot of these people are getting behind a wheel of a car which, if driven at a certain speed, could murder people easily. It could do a lot of damage behind the car. We don't worry about them, running off the road and just running over people. But somehow we need to coddle them around being nice on social media. Come on, they're grown-ups. They know what they're doing. It's true. They should be nice. They should absolutely be nice. They should be professional and all the rest. But if you find yourself saying, you should have a better social media presence because it's important to your sales, the second you're saying that sentence out loud, you've lost, because everybody knows this. This is common sense. It's basic. If you act like a jackass, it's going to have consequences. If you don't know that, you really shouldn't be driving around, because you're clearly not ready for, as they say, adulting. But no, the reason why I say I think creators have a greater responsibility to be polite and to try and generate a good tone is because a lot of people look to them. They do have a big following. They do have a lot of eyes. They do have a lot of people who want to emulate, who want to be like them, whether in the job, in the profession, or be them precisely. Donny Cates, for example, is a big name in comics, and he writes a lot of stories. Lots of people consume those stories, and a lot of people, right or wrong, show up to Twitter to see what Donny Cates is saying because they, respect and admire him. You could say the same thing about a lot of different personalities, right, left, and center. And so if you then, when you have that following and you have that grouping, no, you're not responsible for what everyone else does, but if you act like a jackass, you are, you're not encouraging a healthier environment. And I think it's kind of, up to all of us to try and not run out in the world and be crazy assholes. I think it's better if we try and get along. I think, when choosing between good and evil, we should choose good. A week or so ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't remember when it was, I talked about the surprise I had around, there's a YouTube commentator, Just Some Guy. And he was, I said, I came back from the country and they were going on about this Florida bill. And I hadn't read it at the time. I have read it now. And, he was basically, getting in fights with people around this bill. And, it was, people were against the bill. Just Some Guy was pushing back. And what I said in the video at the time is I found it sad that a lot of people immediately responded to him with a comment of groomer. Like, oh, you must be a groomer. Groomer. That was the thing. And when you say groomer, what you're really saying is pedophile. That is what you mean. It's a nicer way of saying that. And I said it was disappointing because a lot of people, stood up for Just Some Guy and followed him when he was talking about how it was wrong for people to casually throw around the term Nazi. And now they disagree with him on a take, and they're calling him groomer. And I felt that's not how we should be. That's not being our best selves, if you will. I know that people, in the video gave me lots of reasons, like, well, here's why we call him a groomer. You could dress it up any way you like. It's still a slur, and it's still not appropriate to actually, debating things. Now, as I said, I did read the bill, and I'll say I don't agree with Just Some Guy's take on it. I don't agree with it. I think the bill is complex. I think one of the sad parts about it is people are trying to boil it down to, a slogan. And I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I made the comment of a lot of the people arguing about this topic, both for and against, do not have children. It's another, weapon in the overall culture war. And I think if you have children, I have children, and they're in school, and both my kids are in school, then you do look at this in a particular way. For me, I'll tell you, and I think I've said this in videos before, one of the things I did not like about the Seattle school system is that they would inject things into the curriculum, into the students, without context. And I'll give you an example. They did a bit around protests, and it was around Black Lives Matter. And so my daughter was in second grade, and they're trying to teach them about activism. And they're like, this is what it means to protest, this is what it means to march, this is where even if people against you, you have to march. And they did a little bit about Martin Luther King, and then they tied it into Black Lives Matter and activism and everything else. And my daughter, I'm asking her, like, so what did you learn? And the takeaway she had was, this is how you march. And she's doing the exaggerated kind of knees up marching, like a marching band. I'm like, wait a minute, they taught you a lesson on activism, and what you took away from that was how to march. And and what became clear as we talked to them is that the teacher didn't give any context for the social problem going on, who was involved, what their points were, any of that. It was, she learned how to march and that Donald Trump was bad in school. And so my child, when I went to the parent teacher, I'm like, you didn't accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. The takeaway was, how to march. And the teacher kind of laughed. You're like, oh yeah, the kids got really into that. I'm like, the problem with these lessons is you're not giving the kids the context of what it is you're telling them. You're jumping right into a lesson without any of the details, any of the knowledge. And as a result, you're not accomplishing anything. Like, I don't want my second grader learning Donald Trump good or bad at second grade. I prefer to do that as a parent. But you did this lesson, and it was pointless, irrelevant, and confusing. And I think I mentioned this in another video before. They, both, daughters who are, in elementary school and middle school, learned about LGBTQ concepts. But in both cases, the what is going on was kind of ignored. It was like, well, we need to protect LGBTQ people. What is the L in LGBTQ? Neither of my daughters knew. They had no idea, but we need to protect them. And so this is the problem with a lot of the education. You're giving them part of the story, but not there's no context, and you're not bothering them. And that's, from my perspective as a parent, what bugs me about this stuff is that you have to explain what's going on. I think if you're going to go into trans rights at first grade, then you probably need to explain what the hell trans is in the first place. If you're just explaining the rights, it's very confusing to the kids. They're not learning anything. That's the problem. And then, unfortunately, you have to ask yourself, at the first grade level, are the kids able to understand the context, even if you explain it to them? This is the problem with a lot of these laws. But you get caught up on, well, you support LGBTQ people, don't you? It's like, I do, yes, but when you're trying to teach this at that level and you're not giving anybody any of the information about what's going on, I don't think you're actually helping anyone. I think you're making yourself as the teacher feel good, and it was clear that was getting accomplished, but you're not doing anything for the kids. And I think that this is where, education is hard. I'm a proponent, and this will make some people crazy, but I am definitely a proponent for teachers should be paid a lot more. But, and this is a big but that is underlined, the standard should be way higher as well. I think, we've all had, I'm hoping, all of us have had good teachers who, if you close your eyes right now, you would happily pay them more than they're making. They had a profound impact on you. They created memories. They educated you. They're worth their weight in gold. I also imagine you can close your eyes and think of some teachers that, phoned it in, didn't want to be there, didn't help anything. And, that there's those too. I think standards should go way up because I think it is a hard job, and I think it's a very important job. So anyway, I know I got astray a little bit, but some of you have been asking me about, the other half of this. But so that's how I feel about it. I share just some guy. I don't know if he actually feels this way or not, but I do share his perspective of the Republicans and the Democrats at different times are both crooks, and their goal is to fleece you out of money. And I tend to have a healthy dislike for both of them. My party is neither, please, and it has been for a long time. I think the amount of fundraising and other kind of nonsense, is completely out of control. And right now, I hate that politics has become the equivalent of a football game where you don't even try and research the topics that you're talking about. You just root for your team. Is your team for it? Great. It's kind of like Bill Maher, which cracks me up a little bit. A lot of people on the right will cite Bill Maher as, hey, look at Bill Maher. He's on my side now because he says he's against woke culture, which is fine. But if you actually watch the whole Bill Maher show, he craps on Republicans as being a completely immoral, awful party filled with crooks and crazy people. And they forget about that part. So I was like, I was watching, I think Eric Larson it's Kurt Busiek was talking about how Bill Maher was never one of us, meaning a liberal. And it's like, yeah, but 95% of his show is very much Democrat. You're reacting to the 5-minute clip that somebody shared from Fox where he said that some Democrats also suck, and immediately that guy was an enemy to you. I don't know. It's just funny. I guess getting back to this, be nice to each other. Look, here's the thing, and why I brought up just some guy again and some of these other things. I think that we all have a choice, when we're, on social media, wherever we are, and it's time to have an argument, and you want to nail somebody. And you may have lots of good justifiable reasons. If you don't fight this fight, then the bad guys win. And the bad guys are the people who are opposite you. And, the bad guys may be people who, they gate kept something, or they put out a shitty comic, or they drew a door in front of a bathtub. Whoever the bad guy is in this scenario. Could be Vita, who's going on and on about, black and brown people need to apply to this editor job. A lot of that behavior is bad. It's toxic. It's bad. It's gross. It's pointless, which is the biggest part of it. It's pointless. Yeah, Vita going on about you need to hire a black or brown editor. Okay, sure. Uh, what's that? What's that going to accomplish again? I mean, cool. We need more black and brown editors. Are we paying them well? I don't know. If we're paying them crappy, I hope I personally I hope the black and brown applicants to the editor job goes and finds something at a better wage. You're trying to get them in for dirt cheap, horrible wages. But yeah, whatever. You do you. Um, but we all have a choice of what to do with that. We can get in there and we can start throwing punches, and it may feel good, but it really isn't contributing to anything. As I've said before in videos, Vita's still there. What are we trying to accomplish here? Are we hoping that one day we'll have the perfect, clap back, the perfect stinger, and Vita's like, oh, they got me. I'm done. I'm retiring from comics forever. I can't come back off that world-class disc. And, I've won. Or, I'm sorry, you have won. I'm done. I don't know. This would be my appeal. And then I'll go back to videos that, talk about something wrong in the comic industry that do a lot more hits. Just try and be nice to each other. It's hard at times because, people are jerks. And when somebody's a jerk to you, it sure feels good to stuff it back in their face. But if we can be nice to each other just a little bit, this whole world would get a hell of a lot more tolerable. And this has been a absolute shit show of a last couple of years, and it's not getting better. So maybe we can help each other out a little bit by just being just 5% nicer, and maybe it'll add up. There's my car again telling me the video is over. Thanks for listening.